thing and achieve that, forgetting everything else, people will admire you. You all are too young to remember a slogan which Tata Steel had 20 years ago. It said, "We also make steel." Right? When we started examining it in detail, we realized that that also was also making us bankrupt, because we went into various areas where we didn't know anything about. We lost focus. So after 2-3 years of my stewardship and patiently trying to turn things around, I threw up my hands and said, we will cancel that also. We make steel. That's what we've been doing for 100 years and making a profit. And as somebody mentioned, we became the lowest cost producer in the world, and therefore benefited the country and the people there. We must maintain focus. And most importantly, as far as leaders are concerned, if I'm asked, what is that one quality that you must have as a leader, forgetting everything else, because you require a multi-purpose person anyway, if that one quality, I would say that quality is credibility. The people who follow you, and you can't achieve anything without the people following you, must know that what you are saying today you actually believe in your heart. And tomorrow will do what you are saying today. That is credibility. Then people will follow. And of course, if you look at history, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, why did people follow? Because they knew that what they were saying was what they really meant and were actually doing. Even a person like Hitler, a cruel man and evil leader, but he was a leader. He gave pride to a nation which was down on its knees after the First World War, humiliated, divided up. He came and showed the path to those people how to attain their greater glory, and they followed him. Now they realize that it was the wrong path and that he was an evil man, but he was a leader. So leaders come in various forms. One of the most recent books which I enjoyed reading was the leadership qualities and lessons management can learn from Genghis Khan. His type of leadership was quite, shall we say, acceptable in those days, but no longer. Anyone who disagreed with him, his head came off. That is one way to get, shall we say, unanimity. But he was a leader, and he conquered half of Asia at that time, which was at that time half the world. So leadership comes in many forms. We don't have to go too deep into history to find out where leadership is, shall we say, wanting. In India, it is definitely wanting at present, and that is why a batch such as yours, and I said the same thing in Lucknow, batch such as yours, who have had the opportunity of a good education and a good understanding of the economics and so on, have to emerge as true leaders to lead India out of the present situation. We have had those leaders at present. A person who has not been much, shall we say, credited with it amongst the prime ministers, and I think that was Narasimha Rao. He saw the writing on the wall in the early 90s. At that time, happened to be the president of the CII, the Confederation of Indian Industry. And I remember going to meet with him and saying that, look, you are proposing so many changes. Do you think you'll be able to let the country move in that direction? He said, Dr. Irani, we have no other choice. We have no other choice. We have to open up. And I think open up he did. What we were forgetting, and this is something which I want to talk to you about after the leadership, is something which I would call lack of, shall we say, aspirations, an aspiration shortage. Do you know that 200 years ago, India had over 20% of world trade? The USA was still fighting the Red Indians and still opening up the West. Russia was still, well, practically barbarians. India had 20% of world trade. in the year 1800 or thereabouts. But then in the next century, that is the 19th century, the 1800s, Industrial Revolution came and we lost out. And 20% of world trade by the year 2000 fell to just 6%, from 20 to 6. Then of course we had a perfectly a good reason, because we were under a colonial power, and the colonial power saw to it that we did not progress. I can give you many stories about Mr. Jamshedji Tata also, how he sought to improve the condition of India and the colonial power would not allow him to. So during the colonial power, those 50 years or 60 years, from the beginning of the 20th century till we got independence, we again fell to a third of what we were. So 20% of world trade became 6% by 1900, became 2% by 2050. And then what happened in 2050? We were independent. We could do what we want, we could chart our own path. And we decided to close our borders, because we thought that the wolves from outside would come and devour our lambs, industry-wise. So we closed our borders. And what happened between 1947 and 1991? That 2% of world trade fell to 0.6. Because people forgot that those same walls which kept the wolves out also stopped our tigers from going out. The same walls. The tariff walls are not one way. They are built both ways. They stop movement both ways. So the result was that India was a non-entity by 1991, just 0.6% of world trade. And as I said, Narasimha Rao and others demolished those walls to a large extent. Some of the remnants are still there, and we're still trying to demolish them. But now we are again rising, and I think that our proportion of world trade now is 2%, some maybe 3%. It is again going up. But it will be a long, long time before it is 20% again, which it was 200 years ago. So we have a history from which we have to learn. We don't have to follow that, but we have a history from which we can learn lessons. So we must think big, and at the same time consider ourselves lucky that we are living in an environment which is promoting, shall we say, entrepreneurship and going out into the rest of the world. I don't think I need to lecture to you about economics of going out. Tatas have gone out. Till 1990, 10% of our income was from outside our shores. Today, with a much higher base, 65% of our income is from outside our shores. And there are, of course, certain limitations on what we can do in India. I don't want to go into the story about the land acquisitions and so on. Those are matters. I think those who live in Karnataka know that better than most others about how improper uses of land can thwart the economy of a country. I can see that I have taken up a lot of your time, but there are two things about which I would like to talk before I shut up. And those are two challenges which you all will have to face and face squarely in the decades ahead. One is on a global scale. The other is an Indian problem. Let's take the Indian problem first. The Indian problem is inclusive growth and what we call affirmative action. I asked a poor guy this morning in one of your classes, I don't suppose he's here now, that why do you think you are here in this air-conditioned room when millions of your countrymen are sweating it out outside without much hope? He gave another garbled answer, but I had to jump down his throat and said that the reason is because your parents and society gave you an opportunity. All of you also, thanks to your parents sitting there, have had that opportunity. Opportunity of a good education, which is something which the vast majority of your countrymen have not had. We have to give them that, whatever little we can do. Every drop adds to the ocean. We have to give those people an opportunity, what I call affirmative action. Whether it is SCs or STs or OBCs or minorities or ladies, it is immaterial. Those who don't have an opportunity, I was very happy to see, by the way, that out of the first 10 today, more than half were ladies. So you have a good gender ratio. But you are an exception. Manipal is an exception in many ways, and that is one more positive, shall we say, exception, where there are so many ladies in this group and they are doing well. And I wish you all well, because ladies do have a difficult situation when it comes to management. Now they are coming up, but at one time they were looked down upon by their families and by their colleagues also. But they have faced that situation, and now we have so many ladies who are doing well, and I wish you that you can do even better in the years ahead, because there is no reason why you should be discriminated because of your gender. Similarly, there is no reason at all why we should discriminate against these unfortunates who, because of history, because of dogma, because of prejudices, because of caste system, have suffered for ages. We have to give that little bit extra leg up to them. You know, in Tata Steel, I noticed over 25 years ago that not many of these communities were coming into our worker category, because we have a certain examination which everybody has to pass before they can be employed in Tata Steel, a sort of a hurdle, a bar. And these poor fellows, because of the lack of education and opportunities, were not jumping over that bar. So what did we do? We didn't lower the marks for them. I think that's a disaster. It is against self-esteem, it's against pride to say that, oh, because you are a girl or an ST, you will pass at 40, whereas others have to get 60. That is very demeaning. What we've got to do is to get those people to perform as well in the tasks ahead of them, in the examinations, and for that maybe give them some pre-course training. So what we did in Tata Steel was we got these SCSTs and we gave them a 2-year training period to enable them to appear in our entry test and pass on merit. And now more and more are coming in. That means we did not lower our standards. We just helped those who needed help to help themselves. And the result has been very positive. And I'm glad to say that many industries now are catching on. We still have a long way to go. But inclusive growth is something which this country needs, and you are the ones who are going to solve it. So that is a typically Indian situation and Indian issue. What is the global one, the other one? That is climate change. I think those of you who are well-read would realize that unless we do something now in the next 1 decade, this planet will be unlivable by the end of this century. Projections are that the temperatures, because of the CO2 which has gone into the atmosphere and which we continue pumping in, including India, will raise our temperatures by 4 degrees, the sea temperatures by 4 degrees. Anything over 2, maybe 2.5 is unthinkable. If it goes up by 4 degrees by the turn of this century, there will be no ice caps left, there will be no Arctic, there will be no Antarctic. All the ice would have melted. And therefore, conditions in India would be unlivable unless we want to all live in gas masks and things like that. So, and we have to start acting now. Luckily, corporates are thinking of that. Indian government is thinking of that. There is lack of leadership amongst the, shall we say, advanced countries of the world, particularly USA. And I think at present, if you were to ask me, I would give it a 50-50 chance that in 2012 we do something which by 2020 will achieve certain results. By 2030, we have to achieve some more results, so that by the year to 2100, we will still be living on this planet. And once again, it is leadership, it is well-informed people who have to work. So these are two challenges far bigger than the financial crisis which we see in Europe and elsewhere, far bigger than the internecine wars that we see in Iraq and Afghanistan and so on. These are all minor compared to what will happen if climate change is not taken care of. And the solution to that, I am afraid, once again, lies in your hands. I had many other things to say, but time has got on. So all I will wish you once again is, shall we say, all the best for the future. All that I have said also has to be accomplished with hard work. There is no substitute for hard work. You cannot sit on your backside and say that, well, I support climate change, and after that, don't do anything about it. Or say that, yes, I'm all for SCSTs, and then don't do anything about it. That backside, if you sit on it, will one day be kicked by one of these problems. So get out of this world, forget what the situation would be if you were just to continue in the way you are continuing, because that answer is not acceptable, and hard work is required. And as far as hard work is concerned, I will end with that stanza. The heights of great men, reached and kept, were not achieved by sudden flight, but they, whilst their companions slept, were working upwards through the night. You should be them. God bless you all. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for those inspiring words. As a token of our gratitude, I request our chairman, Dr. Ramdas Pai, to present a memento to our chief guest. Thank you, sir. I now request Professor Raghunath Rudran, Associate Dean, Administration, to propose the vote of thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasant duty to propose a vote of thanks at the conclusion of the 26th Annual Convocation of TAPMI being held today. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. J.J. Irani, former Managing Director of Tata Steel, for taking out some of his valuable and precious time and delivering a wonderful and thought-provoking convocation address. We also thank you, sir, for visiting us on location at TAPMI and interacting and sharing your corporate experiences and ideas on good corporate governance and management on a one-to-one basis with our student and faculty community. I'm sure that all these interactions will be shared by, will be treasured by each one of us and immensely benefit us in our future careers and work. I would like to thank Dr. Ramdas Pai, Chairman, TAPMI Governing Council, and Chancellor, Manipal University, for gracing this occasion and supporting us. A very deep thank to you, sir. I take this opportunity to thank all members of the Trust and Governing Council for their wise counsel and benign support. I would also like to thank all the distinguished invitees present here to share our joy on this occasion. The parents and family members of the outgoing batch of PGDM 2012 and PGDM Healthcare 2012 have traveled far and are here to share the joy of their wards on this momentous occasion. I thank them all for taking time off and making the occasion memorable for their wards and us. I thank all the heads, faculty, and staff of sister institutions at Manipal who have supported this effort with their presence. I would like to thank all members of the faculty and staff of TAPMI for their continuous support for this occasion. In particular, I would like to thank and appreciate and commend the students of our first year for their stellar role on stage and off stage in supporting the conducting of this Convocation 2012. I thank in particular members of media for their coverage of this event and presenting the ideas generated and proceedings to the larger world. I would also like to thank the management of Syndicate Bank for providing us with this venue, the Syndicate Bank Golden Jubilee Auditorium and the facilities associated. Thank you one and all for being present here and making the 26th Annual Convocation of TAPMI a huge success and a memorable occasion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I request our chairman, Dr. Ramdas Pai, to declare the convocation ceremony closed. Ladies and gentlemen, I request all of you to kindly rise for the national anthem.